Okay, so in this video, we're going to take the next step. So we learned how to move a file into JASP. We learned how to change our categories for the type of data that we have. We learned how to use descriptive statistics to find mean and standard error, and we learned how to use make box plots. So in this video, we're going to learn how to compare two groups using the same data set. So you've got that data entered, it's entered correctly. You're going to go to the tab that says t-test. You're going to come down to independent samples t-test. So again, we want to compare between forest types. So forest types are our grouping variable. How different were these forest types in these various categories that we compared? So once again, we can just literally move all those categories over into our compare. And we get some data output here, but I got to first talk to you a little bit about data output. So what a t-test is doing is it is comparing patterns between two groups, which is what we have here, which is what you have in your independent research test. So before you can begin to compare two groups, you have to decide what kind of t-test you can do. So a student t-test, notice they say it's a good old-fashioned t-test. It's the default. But that assumes that your data is normally distributed, okay? So before you can begin to do a t-test, you've got to check for normality, all right? And so if we look at the assumption checks box down here, that assumption check box, which is running a test called the Shapiro-Wilks test, tells us which ones we could actually use a normal t-test on. And if you see, it says significant results suggest a deviation from normality. So the drip tips, the red, the variegated, the hairy, plant height, and leaf area all have a p-value that suggests it's not normally distributed. So you can't legally use a student t-test. You'll notice that the waxy characteristic is normally distributed. We could use a t-test on that one. And you'll notice that the thorns has this thing, NaN, which means there's essentially not enough data. If you'll remember back to your box plots, none of the rainforest plots had thorns and very few of the temperate forests. So essentially they're telling you you can't do stats on that. So given this pattern in our assumptions, we're not going to use an independent sample t-test, but instead we're going to come down here and use a non-parametric test. So look at this pull-out box. It says non-parametrics is when they're not normally distributed. And that's what we've got here, folks. So we're going to click the Mann-Whitney box and get rid of the student box. Okay? So we are doing Mann-Whitney t-test on our data, which is assuming that there isn't normal distribution. If you look at the Mann-Whitney test, what we are looking for here is p-values less than or equal to 0.05. All right, so let's look at this data. So I made it big for us so that we can see it. All right, so, well, maybe that wasn't such a good thing to do because now we can't really see it. So let me go back and make it not big so you can actually see the whole thing. All right, so if we look at our t-test, which is a Mann-Whitney test, it's telling us that there is a significant difference between temperate forest and rainforest in drip tips, waxy, red, variegated, hairy, plant height, and leaf area. Okay, so we're seeing significant differences in that data. So that's how you do an independent samples t-test, and to check to make sure that you are doing it correctly. All right. There's a couple other things we can do on this independent samples t-test. We can come down and we can make some plots if we wanted to. We could make some bar plots that have standard error on them. So this may be plots that you're more used to seeing. Remember we made the box plots? Well, with bar plots, we've got the average and the standard error of the mean shown, and we can see, whoa, yeah, there's definitely big differences in drip tip patterns in leaves and understory plants in the rainforest versus the temperate. Here we see the pattern with waxy, the red, the variegated, hairy, and thorns. And there we're seeing that thorn problem and such a low percentage of thorns that we're kind of eliminating that from a discussion, right? So, and here we see our plant height. Plants are bigger in the rainforest, and our leaf area. The leaves are bigger in the rainforest. So we've got a lot of cool information that's here that you can use to look at your data and report patterns of your data. So that is taking in data, comparing two groups, testing for normality, deciding whether you can use parametric or non-parametric, and then making some plots to look at patterns. Okay, so I hope that's a helpful video to you.